Breaking news, this is Jordan Sekulow. Today on Jay Sekulow Live, Pastor Bryan, Naren, and Pastor Andrew Brunson make a surprise appearance with President Trump on night one of the Republican convention. We'll talk about that with both of them today on Jay Sekulow Live.
Live from Washington, D.C., Jay Sekulow Live.
I was held in Turkey for 2 years, and you took unprecedented steps, actually, to secure my release, and your administration really fought for me. And I think if you hadn't done that, I may still be in Turkey. So I'm very grateful.
28 years, right? They had you there they had you scheduled for a long time, Andrew.
Yes.
We had to get you back.
Phone lines are open for your questions right now. Call 1-800-684-3110.
I'm Bryan Nerren. Spent an unexpected trip there in India. I was not going to India. I was going through India to Nepal, where I've been working for the last 18 years. But on behalf of my family and myself, thank you, President Trump, for getting us out and getting us home. The darkest moment of our whole time together, your letter to my wife came. And it really gave her the hope and the peace. And
that's great.
From that time forward, as more people got involved, especially the ambassador there in India, things became more peaceful, and the hope was there for the last 4 months that we really would get to come home, because they had planned on keeping me for 3 to 5 years.
And now, your host, Jordan Sekulow.
Welcome to Jay Sekulow Live. This is Jordan Sekulow, night one of the RNC convention. You could see it already in the media analysts after the liberals on CNN, MSNBC. Their jaws were dropping after Tim Scott said, from the cotton fields to Congress, when you had this production level that made what the Democrats do look like something high school students could have put together in a drama class. And that's actually being mean to high school students in drama class and also film club, to be honest with you. And their criticism was, it was just too Hollywood. Now, that came from the left, who is Hollywood. I mean, there are like 3 outspoken conservative, well-known actors, and they're basically blacklisted from major motion pictures because they are conservative in Hollywood. Yet it was the Republicans who were too Hollywood. Oh, wait, there's a virtual convention that you needed to keep eyeballs on. How do you do that? You make it look interesting. And you have great content. And I will tell you, from the very first speaker to the very last speaker, there was great content. And, Dad, what I liked, and then we'll get into the specifics about Pastor Naren and Pastor Brunson appearing with President Trump at the White House, with others who were illegally imprisoned abroad. They were both illegally imprisoned abroad because of their Christian faith, and they will be joining us live on the broadcast today. So 1-800-684-3110. But, Dad, what I liked was that lack of just blah filler music videos.
No,
if there was a video, it had a point and it was well produced.
No, I thought it was right on target. I thought it was great. And yes, the left. I mean, even Anderson Cooper said you have to say the production quality was far superior to the DNC, but the content was also superior. And there was one shot in particular. I know we're going to have Pastor Brunson and Pastor Naren on later in the broadcast. In the next segment's coming up. But for us at the ACLJ, and for you that support the work of the ACLJ, I want you to think about this for a moment. In that interview that they did where the president interviewed each of those 6 hostages, we had 3 clients in that room. We had Pastor Naren, Pastor Brunson, and then in our private capacity, the President of the United States. So I was telling this to Pam yesterday when that was going on. I said, that's pretty unique. There you go. I mean, you're talking about a part of history, and your support of the American Center for Law and Justice, of the ACLJ, allows us to do all of this, to get those 2 home from India, from Turkey. Your support of the ACLJ is critical. We're in the last days of our matching challenge campaign. I want to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ.
And last night was just a reminder for you, folks, about how important our work is. That 2 of our clients are there with the President of the United States on night one of the Republican convention, recognizing that they were released from illegal imprisonment because of their Christian faith. Those were our clients. Okay, folks? We have those clients. We're able to provide our services to them at no cost, get them released, get them returned home because of your support, your donations to the ACLJ. Be part of our matching challenge. Double the impact of your donation. Donate today at aclj.org. Welcome back to Jay Sekulow Live. We are going to be taking your phone calls, even in this segment, 1-800-684-3110. But as we told you last night, the beginning of the Republican National Convention, two of our clients, the American Center for Law and Justice, made an appearance with President Trump at the White House, along with four others who were illegally detained or arrested, some charged and imprisoned. Our two clients because of their Christian faith. Both will be joining us today live on the broadcast. And first, we have joining us right now Pastor Bryan Naren, who was detained 7 months in India before he was finally freed. First detained in October 5th of 2019. We began representing Pastor Naren. He was freed on May 15th, 2020, and he is the pastor of the International House of Prayer Ministries in Shelbyville, Tennessee. Pastor Naren, thanks so much for joining us on today's broadcast.
Thank you. It's my privilege to be here.
Pastor, let me ask you this, and we're glad you're back home, and we're glad that you're safe. Give us a kind of a inside the White House yesterday, what it was like. Tell our audience.
The most impressive part, the White House is the White House, but to personally meet the president and realize he's like obviously the most intelligent person I ever met, but he's a kind, compassionate guy. I mean, he really is who he says he is. And you don't always see that on television because he's more New York. But in person, he's a great guy, and he really cares about the American people.
Well, he cared. I will tell you this, just so you know, because we worked on your case. Of course, our senior counsel, C.C. Heil, led that effort up. But I will tell you, as I spoke to the president over the months that you were in prison, he would ask, he'd bring it up on his own. He would tell me what they're doing. The State Department, of course, was heavily involved too. But he was committed, and I got to say this, and again, people vote for whoever they want to vote for, but I got to tell you something. In working with several administrations, Republican and Democrat, I've never seen a president as engaged in obtaining the release of Americans held overseas than I have with Donald Trump. And the 45th president of the United States sets a new standard, in my view.
Not. And Pastor, and I think you brought up something I think was very important. A lot of people know President Trump as the campaigner in 2016, as our tough commander-in-chief who uses tough rhetoric, but has obviously connected with the American people. You saw a side that we've all seen, as because we also represent him in his private capacity, about the fact that he cares so much about America and Americans that when there are people like you who are Americans that are being unjustly detained, it is on his mind. He is compassionate. They try to make him out to be as someone who has no compassion, no empathy. And the fact is, it's natural for him. He cares about it deeply. And like my dad said, ask and consistently ask his administration, what are we doing to get them home? What are we doing to get them home? And I think that was on display last night because the American people got to see that was something he wanted to highlight, how much he cared about Americans who are imprisoned unjustly or held unjustly abroad and bringing them home. Pastor?
Impressive to know he's that genuine. He walked into the room and said hi to us and then told all six of us our stories. He knew all the details, all the people, everybody involved in the legal matters and the political matters, the diplomatic. He knew everybody's whole story right off the top of his head.
This is one of the things that we people need to understand, and these cases are complex. I mean, when there it was India, and we're dealing with an ally, and it was still complex. Turkey, a NATO ally. We're going to be hearing from Andrew Brunson coming up next. But I mean, Pastor, for us at the ACLJ, you can imagine how it was for us as we were watching last night. And this goes for our members, too, around the country, frankly, and around the world. But how thrilling it was for us to see you and Andrew Brunson in the same room at the same time with another one of my clients, the President of the United States. For us, that was a pretty awesome moment, to say the least. And we thank God that you released and you're back and you're home. How are you doing? How are you feeling?
Doing great. Feeling wonderful. It's been a little over 3 months. Life has never been better, never been more valuable than it is right now. And Jay, especially, thank you. It got edited out. I always drop CC's name in there because CC did all the heavy lifting and all the work. She is the real reason I came home, and I appreciate everything that y'all, but especially that she did.
Yeah, she did look. CC Howell has a heart for this. She does a great job on this, and I'm glad you mentioned her. And of course, without the president, obviously the Lord did the whole thing, but without the president implementing the various decisions along the way, we'd still be fighting these cases out. So, but Cece has done a great job on this effort. And let me say something, too, for our audience, and that is Cece's family has had a medical emergency with her son. And I want to encourage people. I know we're in the middle of the broadcast right now, but since Pastor Naren, you said it, and I don't know if you know the situation, Pastor, but her son, Jordan, has had, I'm not going to get into the details, a very significant surgery where he's having a pretty slow recovery. We're praying for a great result. Pastor, would you mind praying for Cece and her family right now that you said that?
I'd love to do it. Lord, we come to you right now in the name of Jesus Christ because you are the healer, you are our hope, and you are the one that we trust in ultimately for everything. And you know the heart of this lady, Cece Howell, and how much she loved us and how much she loved her job and the country, but she really loves you more than any of the rest of us. And this is a very difficult time. Her husband's not been healthy for a long time, and now this desperate situation with her son. And so we ask, Lord, that you would be the healer and that you would cause his recovery to advance quickly. And that you would be right there in that hospital with them now, powerfully, strong, filling full of hope, but heal, Lord. Be the healer. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.
You know, Pastor Naren, it was I actually texted Cece last night the screenshot because I knew her situation and wasn't sure that she'd be able to be watching. So I wanted her to be able to see that photo of you with the president and Pastor Brunson there. And I can tell you just how encouraged she was and how excited she was that you were able to be there with the President of the United States, and that this, again, brought up the issue that she cares so much about, we all do at the ACLJ, which is the issue of the persecution of Christians, the targeted arrest and detainment of Christians by foreign governments, some friendly, some unfriendly governments, and the fact that the president chose during the first night of the Republican convention, when all the eyes of the American people are on it, to highlight that issue. I know she was very encouraged by it, and I sent her the clip of it as well, so she could see that while she was with her son. So, hey, Pastor, I want to ask you this. You're back now as a pastor. International House of Prayer is in Shelbyville, Tennessee. The website is ihopm.com. And, we're on in Tennessee. If people want to visit your church, are you all operating right now at like a different capacity and level, just so if listeners are interested in coming to hear Pastor Naren preach that are in the Tennessee area?
As soon as they allowed Tennessee to have church, we began full operations right back. They were having full church while I was still in India. So we do everything normal, everything natural. We have a lot of guests coming because of the situation, and we love guests. We love people more than anything else. And our motto at our church, it's the number one thing, and I say it almost every service, the thing that makes our church different is we don't hurt each other, no matter what.
So, again, if you're interested, if you're in that Shelbyville or Tennessee area and you want to go see Pastor Naren preach, check out the ihopm.com. That's the House of Prayer Church. That's his church website, so you can find out the information about their services. Pastor Naren, it was an honor again to speak to you. I'm so glad that you're home and like kind of getting life back to normal. I know you also had a situation with one of your children, and it was important for you to get back for that reason. And quickly tell people about that, because it wasn't just you who were suffering; it was your family as well.
It was 100 times harder on my family than it was on me. We have a special needs daughter. She had a brain hemorrhage when she was about 8 months old, and she just turned 30 this past month. And my wife works a full-time job at a hospital, and it was tremendous difficult. But they made it by the help and the grace of God and the strength of hundreds of thousands of people sending prayers every day, and finances. People were incredibly good. It cost a small fortune to do that little project we did, and the Lord was great and gracious and has taken care of every need we've had.
All right, Pastor, we appreciate it. Thanks for coming. Glad you're home. Glad you were with the president, and glad that we saw a positive outcome in that case. Thank you so much for being with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you for
Pastor.
everything y'all done and this opportunity.
You know, again, that we will hear from Pastor Brunson live as well later in the broadcast. I just want to encourage you folks. This is a reason why to support the work of the
ACLJ in action right there in the Oval Office last night.
Yeah, and again, this is, I know Pastor Brunson you saw once before when he first got home and he prayed with the president. But then to go back again, and you heard that from some of the others who were detained, that first time around, you're kind of, and I'll tell you, I mean, for the first time you're in the Oval Office with the President of the United States, it is hard to, I remember one of them saying, it was hard to remember kind of what happened. You're kind of like flash before you, and then you walk out of the room and say, What just happened? So to be able to go back that second time for Pastor Brunson and really take it all in is quite an honor as well. An honor well deserved, by the way, after being imprisoned in Turkey for over 2 years because of his Christian faith. But it was President Trump who brought these American pastors home. And I thought that was just a very moving moment, which was, by the way, criticized by the left.
I know
as President Trump trying to show he's fake. Meanwhile,
he's done more for hostage release than any president in U.S. history.
Oh, let me tell you, it was pulling teeth to get the Obama administration to do anything on Christians, American Christians imprisoned abroad. Pulling teeth. Congressional hearings we had to go to. Now, you have an ally when it comes to that in the White House. Support the work of the ACLJ. Double the impact your donations. The last week of our matching challenge, aclj.org. Donate today at aclj.org.
Disappointment haunted all my dreams.
Hey, welcome back to the broadcast, everyone. That is the latest of the Jay Sekulow Band, 2 original tunes. That's I'm a Believer by the Monkees. I'm going to play that at the end for you as a bonus today, but we're also, actually I'm doing it today, laying down the final drums for 2 new tunes. At the end of the month, and we have matching challenges, we have the matching challenge concert, and we're going to have that again. It'll be obviously different, a bit virtual, but you'll get 4 tunes, basically, that 2 of them played one time, and the other 2 you've never seen before that we're doing now. 2 great songs. We're looking forward to that. Let's get into the issue of the actual convention yesterday, and I want to juxtaposition here, Jordan, 2 things. You made a big deal about this because Biden made this big statement about miracles, and then Trump had a reference to miracles too. So I want to let's start with the President Trump's. This is an interview with one of the hostages, and Mr. Holt, who was in jail for, I think, wasn't the amount of time he was there a long time. Yeah, in Venezuela, you can imagine. Take a listen to what the president says.
The great people of Utah really wanted me to do something about the 2 of you, and we were able to do it. And a little bit of a miracle, I think, frankly.
It was.
Because it was a very hostile period. And we appreciate everybody working so hard with us, but we were able to get you both back. And are you living in Utah now, I hope?
We're still living in Utah.
That's good. We'll say hello to the folks in Utah because they're great people.
And the president said he worked hard to get him out, but he said, frankly, we were able to do it, and a little bit of a miracle, I think, frankly. So he acknowledged that he didn't do it on his own. It's got power from God helping on these things, and I think on all of these matters. But let's juxtapose this, Jordan, with Joe Biden. So set it up first.
So Joe Biden mocked the idea of miracles. He actually said, I saw these media commentators, they were trying to say, well, last night was doom and gloom and dark. And it was Joe Biden who said last week, there's no miracles coming. This is the guy they say is so religious. They were making jokes about that last week. And again, I'm not questioning his faith, but it's weird for a person of faith to say there's no miracles. Now, God's given us a brain, so sometimes it's a mix of miracle and brain. And to discount, though, an absolute miracle is just disgusting. And that's what Joe Biden did. Take a listen.
Just look around. It's not this bad in Canada or Europe or Japan or almost anywhere else in the world. And the president keeps telling us the virus is going to disappear. He keeps waiting for a miracle. Well, I have news for him. No miracle is coming.
I really hope Joe Biden's wrong, by the way, and pray and believe he is wrong, because when they come up with a virus and a vaccine for the virus, I believe that will be a miracle. Yes, God uses human beings. But do you think, like I said the other day, when Jonas Salk came up with the polio vaccine, that the parents in the 1950s weren't saying a miracle? But this kind of gives you the tale of 2 cities, the tale of 2 parties, and that's what it is. They boast on no miracles, and the president, who is criticized often for being too self-absorbed in all this, instead of saying to Mr. Holt, I got you out, and I did it myself, and we got you done, he says, we were able to do it, and a little bit of a miracle, frankly, because he acknowledged that these were not easy and that it takes providence. So there you have it. That was just one takeaway. Then, Jordan, you mentioned the doom and gloom aspect. I actually thought when that Cuban-American owner of the business who left Cuba and tried to compare what was going on with the left of the Democratic Party to what he experienced as a family, I thought, there were a lot of moving moments in the night. That was one of them. Let's go ahead and play some of his statement.
I may be a Cuban-born, but I am 100% American. This is the greatest country in the world. And I said this before. If I gave away everything that I have today, it would not equal 1% of what I was given when I came to this great country of ours. The gift of freedom.
How in the world does MSNBC and CNN not say that was a moving, touching, uplifting, real moment about the beauty of America from someone that would know the difference firsthand? But rather than acknowledging anything good, they paint it with it's dark. It was a dark convention. I felt it was, I don't know, maybe they are so committed. You know what I think is going to happen? No one endorses candidates here. But if they keep this up, it will be a landslide.
No, I think that last night's convention, the reason why they wouldn't acknowledge any of that, and of course CNN brought out fact checkers for this convention, didn't have it for the Democrats.
They gave an excuse, Jordan, actually. They said, well, we did have them, but we didn't have to use them as much. Yeah. Well, there were a few things they said weren't
they didn't
right.
Tell anybody what those were.
Right.
Now, and then, so that's one. CNN trying to play the middle of the ground. No, they're not. They're just like the left. They just say it a different way than MSNBC. MSNBC wasn't as happy about last week's because they really wanted Bernie Sanders. CNN really likes more of like the Joe Biden types, but they're all to the left. I think they're all freaking out. That was night one. That's just your opening, okay? And that story for Mr. Alvarez, it's about America's greatness, just like what Tim Scott talked about. When Tim Scott talked about his family going from the cotton fields to Congress, it's about America as a great place, as a land of opportunity, not as a horrible place. And you know what it is, Dad? The far left that's now running the Democrat Party wants to paint the picture of a dark America, sad America. You know, it was darkly lit last week at the DNC, and everything is so bad, and Trump is so horrible, and life is so bad here. And yet, this is still, even in the midst of COVID, even in the midst of the pandemic, even if you don't agree with Donald Trump's politics, this is still the land of opportunity. And I want you to know, by Mr. Alvarez saying that last night at the RNC, he was also endorsing the Republican Party and the President of the United States. I mean, that's what he was doing there. So he wasn't just making a comment about America, but he was saying the America the way the president sees it in contrast to how the other side sees it. Because, I mean, we had Nancy Pelosi, Dad, yesterday call us enemies of the state.
Yes, I saw that.
I mean, let's play that for people if we have it. Enemies of the state.
Well, I'm trying to think, what would motivate her to
because
actually
of postal
say that?
funding.
Postal funding. Here we go.
Let's just get out there, mobilize, organize, and not let the president deter anybody from voting. And again, support the postal system, which is election central. They're doing everything they can. Suppress the vote with your actions, scare people, intimidate by saying law enforcement will be there, diminish the role of the postal system in all of this. It's really actually shameful. Enemies of the state.
That's the language that dictators use that Mr. Alvarez fled from, calling people enemies of the state. You know who had charges like that brought against him? Who will be joining us the next half hour? Andrew Brunson.
Yeah, he was deemed an enemy of the state of Turkey, the Islamic Republic of Turkey. Now, let me tell you what I want you to do, or request you to do. We are in the last days of our matching challenge campaign, and you saw it today. I mean, the first half hour of the broadcast, there it was. 2 of our clients, really 3 with the president, in the room together. That doesn't happen without you. This broadcast does not happen on radio, TV, on all of our social media platforms without your support. We're in the last few days of our matching challenge campaign. Go to ACLJ.org. That's ACLJ.org. Have your gift double. Whatever you donate, we get a match for it. ACLJ.org. Back with more in a moment. Here's what I want to say to our ACLJ members, or for those of you that enjoy watching this broadcast. Whether it is going after the deep state, whether it is litigation that we're engaged in, whether it is defending the persecuted church and getting individuals out of prison in other countries because of their faith, whether it's training lawyers to fight for religious liberty, not just here in the United States, but around the globe, whether it is producing a daily 1-hour live television and radio broadcast heard on thousands of radio stations, on TV platforms, on social media platforms. Your support of the ACLJ enables us to do all of this. We want to encourage you to support the work of the ACLJ. We're in a matching challenge campaign. Any amount you donate, we get a matching gift for. Go to aclj.org today. That's aclj.org.
Live from Washington, D.C., Jay Sekulow Live. And now, your host, Jordan Sekulow.
Welcome back to Jay Sekulow Live. So we're talking about the first night of the Republican National Convention. In our final segment of the broadcast, we'll talk about what's coming up tonight. We've already heard from Pastor Bryan Naren. He appeared last night. He was our client. He appeared last night with President Trump on the first night of the Republican National Convention at the White House, along with Pastor Brunson and 4 other Americans who were illegally imprisoned. Pastor Brunson, or detained, and Naren were done. That was done to them because of their Christian faith, specifically. That's why they were highlighted and brought.
I think the Utah couple, too.
Yes, the Utah couple as well. So 4 of the 6, at least, were detained because of their religious faith. And President Trump wanted to remind the American people on that first night of the convention what he and his administration have done, how committed they are to the release of Americans unjustly imprisoned or detained abroad, especially those who are unjustly detained or imprisoned abroad because of their Christian faith. And he did it in the setting that would get the most attention possible from a lot of Americans who, remember, do not often tune in to cable news, may not even have heard about, stories like this.
Yep.
And they start paying attention to politics. They could be Christians, though, and people who care about Christians who are imprisoned abroad. That may have been the first time they heard about Pastor Brunson and Pastor Naren, because they might not be listeners to radio, conservative talk, Christian talk, or cable news, and so they got to hear those stories, and it encouraged them to find out more because it shows a different side of the president. But also, Dad, as you said, it was 3 of our clients there, 2 ACLJ clients, and 1 in our private capacity. Tell people,
Yeah,
I mean, it's pretty.
It was
pretty
it was a
unique.
pretty unique moment for us. I'll tell you that. Is you got 2 cases of international implication, one involving India, the other involving Turkey, and you're talking about human life, so we treat these as death penalty cases. And then there they are in the Oval Office, which Jordan and I have been in many, many times over the last 4 years. And then another one of our clients in our individual capacity as private lawyers is the President of the United States. So I think of the 6 people there or so, there were 3 of them were clients of ours. And I just think it reinforces what God's allowed us to do over the years here with these kind of cases. And as we said in the earlier, and I want to say it again for those just listening, she couldn't be with us today because she's with her family, and her son's has had significant surgery, although he's doing better, but still has a road to recovery. CeCe Heil did a phenomenal job in the representation of these clients, and I'll say thank you to her. I know the pastors did as well. The president knows it. CeCe, I sent CeCe up there when Andrew Brunson met with the president the first time. I didn't go. I had CeCe go. It was the right thing to do, and I'm glad I did, and she deserved it, and she deserves our thanks and our prayers, as we said earlier. I appreciated Pastor Naren praying for her. I want to get into some of the other substantive ones. Vernon Jones, former DeKalb County CEO. We lived in DeKalb County in Georgia. Phenomenal speaker, and he gave a great message.
He's a Democrat state House representative now in Georgia, so he's still an elected official. He's a Democrat, and he talked about how they tried to push him out of the party.
Yep.
But you can't force someone out. And
Tim Scott was incredible. We'll get to some of that as well.
Nikki Haley, I think on the foreign policy examples, back and forth, point by point about the Trump administration and what the Obama administration, and that includes Biden then, of course. So I think it was a very good opening.
Yeah.
On visually, because I thought that was what's going to be judged on first.
It looked great.
Everything worked. There were no technical flaws.
A lot on school choice last night too.
A lot
and we'll talk about that. Another issue that the ACLJ is really out front on.
And the Democrats, they were worried about making too much of their convention live. They didn't think they could pull it off. And they're the Hollywood, they've got the production teams, right? Most of what you saw last night was live. In fact, there was only a few things that weren't. completely live. So I think it was just a totally different feel, and that would probably we'll see a very different kinds of bump from this convention. Joe Biden, they got those polls came in, got no bump from the convention at all, which is not surprising. Now, folks, we come back. We've already been joined by Pastor Naren, one of our ACLJ clients who was there with the president at the White House and on last night at the convention. Next, we'll be joined by Pastor Brunson, who served over 2 years in prison in Turkey because of his Christian faith. He'll be joining us next. Support the work of the ACLJ. Donate online at aclj.org. It's our matching challenge final week. It's an important month for the ACLJ. Donate today at aclj.org. Double the impact your donation. Pastor Brunson joins us not.
Religious persecution is a situation where your life is literally put in jeopardy simply because of what you believe, and your life's at risk.
The level of persecution is on the rise.
My husband, Bryan Naren, is the pastor of a local Christian church in Tennessee. Recently, he was arrested in Bagdogra, India.
As they heard the story, and they realized the effect that it's having on your family.
At the end, I said, hopefully you will never have to go through this. And when I said that, the looks on their faces was like, yeah, this is real. Right. This is real stuff.
The release of Andrew Brunson. He is the American evangelical from North Carolina, held in Turkey for more than 2 years.
They're rushing us to the airport, and there was an Air Force plane that came from Germany that had been on standby. We're flying, and they finally left Turkish airspace. It's like, okay, now we're really out of Turkey and free again.
We're grateful to ACLJ who put it out to these people, they were getting all this out.
All of the people who prayed for us through ACLJ and through your contacts, I'm thankful, I'm grateful, and actually I'm astounded. I was held in Turkey for 2 years, and you took unprecedented steps actually to secure my release, and your administration really fought for me.
It's great to have you back, Andrew. Thank you.
We are getting my husband after 7.5 months. We are so excited.
I'm Bryan Nerren. Spent an unexpected trip there in India. I was not going to India. I was going through India to Nepal, where I've been working for the last 18 years. But on behalf of my family and myself, thank you, President Trump, for getting us out and getting us home.
Welcome back to Jay Sekulow Live. This is Jordan Sekulow, and we'll get more into the convention as well in the next segment of the broadcast. I know we have people been holding on the lines. If you want to talk to us, 1-800-684-3110. Your thoughts on night one of the Republican convention, and kind of in contrast to the Democrat convention last week. Whatever you think. There's no wrong, no right. Just we want your opinion. 1-800-684-3110. I know Ronald's been holding on South Carolina. Ronald will get to you, and I'll make sure I'll get you a signed copy of my book, The Next Red Wave, if you continue to hold on, if you're able to. But we've got a very special guest right now. Pastor Naren, who was imprisoned in India, detained in India, joined us in the first half hour of the broadcast. Pastor Andrew Brunson, who was imprisoned in Turkey for over 2 years because of his Christian faith and charged with crimes like aiding terrorism, facing serious prison terms, joins us live now after he was able to visit the White House and the president again. Many of you will remember the first time Pastor Brunson met with President Trump when he was released, and Pastor Brunson did something amazing, I think, which was knelt and prayed for the president.
And they had a picture of that actually in the pre-video of the actual interview. So that was quite a moment. Pastor Brunson,
it's on the screen now for people watching.
For those watching, and they used that last night, which I thought was extremely moving. Pastor Brunson, to remind people, after your release, when you were going to the Oval Office, you wanted to pray for the president.
Yes, we did. My wife and I had asked God for an opportunity to do this, and it worked. So we were very glad to be able to do that.
Yeah. What was it like being with the president and other people that were held, other hostages in the Oval Office recently here yesterday?
Yeah, it was a good experience, and to meet some other people, a couple of people who were in prison for their faith. And of course, we experienced some of the same things, even though in different countries, just the fear, the despair sometimes, and also the support of God's people praying for us. And a couple of us were helped by ACLJ, I know that.
It was interesting. I made the comment that we had 3 clients in the room, actually, in addition to you, and in addition to Pastor Naren. We had the President of the United States in our personal capacity, of course, not as the ACLJ, but it was pretty moving moment for us. Will you remind people, because I think it's important, we're trying to show the scope and nature of how these cases work and these international diplomacy efforts you have to do to get to obtain release of a pastor or anyone else that matter is not easy. Remind everybody what you were held in jail for 2 years for in Turkey, and explain what you were doing there for so many years.
Well, we were there as missionaries. We were involved in church planting and in refugee work. The reason the Turkish government gave for holding me was military espionage and support of terror groups and helping to plan a coup attempt. But the real reason behind it was, first, it was driven by religious persecution. They wanted to make an example of somebody, and they chose me. And then they started to use me as leverage, trying to gain concessions from the U.S.
I mean, you spent 23 years ministering in Turkey with minimal problems in a predominantly Muslim country, nothing like this that you face. And then all of a sudden, as you said, they wanted to make an example of you, and the charges got more and more serious. But you know that this administration was committed to getting your release. I mean, Turkey, being a NATO ally, had no excuse whatsoever. And the Trump administration went so far in your case, Pastor Brunson, first to threaten sanctions. And then Turkey thought, well, they've dealt with the past administrations that make these threats. They won't actually do it to a NATO ally. Then when they did not release you on the day that the president said they must or sanctions would kick in, sanctions kicked in on 2 of their cabinet officials, and the next round was going to be on their entire economy. So this administration was willing to did put in place sanctions on Turkish officials, and the next step was going to be sanctions on the entire Turkish economy if you weren't released. That's how dedicated President Trump and his team were to getting you home. And I will tell you, as attorneys, Pastor Brunson, who work on a lot of these cases, it really does matter who is in the White House, because in the past, I will tell you, it could be like pulling teeth.
Even get their attention.
To even get their attention, and they certainly aren't threatening sanctions to get Americans home because of their faith.
Pastor, recount for everybody for a moment what it was like when you finally got to the airport and on the airplane.
Oh, I mean, we were hoping that we could clear Turkish airspace and before they changed their minds and put me back in prison. And when we arrived, we were on an Air Force plane that President Trump had sent. And when we arrived at an Air Force base in Germany, I went down
let me say this before you get to that part. You're in the airplane. I want people to understand this. You're flying, but you're still concerned until you clear Turkish airspace.
Well, that's when we knew that we were really out of Turkey, and they couldn't get us back, yes.
And then you arrived at an Air Force base at about 2 o'clock in the morning, I think, in Germany, right?
Yeah, so we came down, my wife and I came down the stairs of the plane, and there was somebody waiting for us, and I found out that it was Richard Grenell, the U.S. ambassador to Germany. And he was standing there with an American flag and handed it to me and said, "Welcome home." And I just buried my face in the flag. I was so grateful for all that my country had done for me.
You know, I talked to Director Grenell about that moment, and when because he eventually became, of course, the Director of National Intelligence. Right. But I talked to him about the moment when you gave. I thought it was, first of all, I appreciated so much that he came out at 2 o'clock in the morning to meet you. But he said that moment with you and him and the American flag is something that's indelibly impressioned in his mind. Your love of country, your love of the Lord, and your just the emotional moment of that. It's a picture that literally went around the world. I mean, that picture, I don't know if we have it, but I will tell you something. For all of us, it was a very moving moment, and I'm so grateful that the President, the State Department, C.C. Heil from our team worked. Rick Grenell, by the way, the ambassador to Germany and now the former Director of National Intelligence, worked tirelessly on your effort. He was a diplomat, our highest-ranking diplomat to the most powerful economy in Europe, and that's Germany. So he was involved and concerned, and It was just a great effort, and I'm just so glad you're doing well. And it was great seeing you there yesterday.
I thought it was a great opportunity, Pastor Brunson, for you and Pastor Naren as well, because as I was saying earlier, a lot of people don't follow politics. They don't watch cable news closely. They might not listen to even broadcasts like ours, even on Christian radio. But a lot of people were watching last night, and as I'm talking right now, for people watching on Facebook and Periscope, there is that scene with Ambassador Grinnell at the time, with Pastor Brunson and his wife just stepping off the plane at the American base in Germany, and as Pastor Brunson said, burying his face really in that American flag. At about 2 a.m, the U.S. Ambassador to Germany coming out to greet him and to welcome him back to safety. Let me say this, though, Pastor Brunson. By going back yet again, I know that more people saw your story last night than even when you first went to the White House and prayed for the president, because more people who usually don't tune in to cable news or follow politics closely do when it's presidential election years. And I'm just encouraged that more people learned about the plight of persecuted Christians and that you were able to be there as a representative of someone who unfortunately had to go through that.
Yeah, and I don't know if people realize how unprecedented the attention to this has been to helping Americans who are detained unjustly overseas, and especially for religious freedom that this administration has pushed. It's very unusual. It's very unusual. I don't think presidents get involved in negotiating for people at my level. But
this
the
president
number
does.
of times,
Pastor Brunson,
he does.
That's the difference. This president actually does. Past presidents, no. I can tell you the most previous past president, absolutely not. But this president, he picks up the phone. I mean, when he put out the tweet, Pastor Brunson, while you were in prison, that said, I'm going to put sanctions on these 2 Turkish officials tomorrow if you're not out. You weren't out. He put the sanctions out. He called their bluff. And then he said tomorrow, he said if it's not done by the next day, he gave a date, I'm putting a sanction on the entire Turkish economy, which would have put them into a downfall. And guess what? So he put that statement out on his own, not through the State Department, on his own, Pastor Brunson. My final question for you is this. I talked to Pastor Naren. For those of you, for people out there who did follow your case closely, tell people what you're doing today.
Well, we have started a nonprofit called Wave Starters, and it's focused on the Muslim world. God called us to work with Muslims, and we still have that call.
All right, so Wave Starters is the organization. I'm sure you could check that out online for Pastor Brunson's new organization and what he's called to do. Pastor, as always, it was an honor to represent you and your family, and even 2 years later, it's so great to have you back home in the United States. I know you wish you could still be doing the work that you did in Turkey, but still better to be safe and with your family at home in the U.S. So we appreciate you joining us today on the broadcast. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all that you do.
Let me encourage you, folks. You need to support the work of the ACLJ. It has ramifications. He was released in 2018. It has ramifications. We're in August of 2020. Our work has large ramifications because of your support, because of your donations. Pastor Brunson was able to be represented by us at no cost to his family. Support the work of the ACLJ. This week is the final week of our matching challenge month in August. Double the impact of your donation. Donate today, aclj.org. Welcome back to Jay Sekulow Live. So now that we've heard from Pastor Naren, Pastor Brunson, I encourage you, if you missed any of this broadcast, go back and watch or share it and listen. You can watch on our app now, on the ACLJ app. You can watch the live broadcast of the show, the actual video, not just the audio, but you can also watch it then after the show airs live noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. And, of course, you can share this broadcast with your friends and family. I think it's a pretty moving episode in real time, real life about what happened last night at the Republican convention. I do want to take some phone calls before we get into some more of the speakers.
You jumped on my tune a little early.
Yeah, well, they'll hear it all again.
We're going to play the whole song afterwards, actually.
Yes, right. And they'll hear it again on our final day of the match. They heard it once the last. Yeah. But you got two more new songs coming up.
And you're going to host that.
Yes, but you have 2 more new songs coming up in the final day of the Matching Challenge concert. That's on Monday.
Yep.
So I want to go.
Recording today.
Yep. So let's go to Ronald. Thank you for holding, Ronald. Make sure after you've talked to us on the air, hold on so I can send you a copy of my book. the next red wave. I'll sign that for you, Ronald, and I appreciate you holding because I know we had those two important guests we wanted to have on. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks for taking my call. Yes, I did enjoy the RNC convention last night, and it was very informative, and I especially enjoyed Nikki Haley and Senator Tim Scott because I'm kind of partial to them because they're from my home state. But other than that, they were very good in their speech and what they had literally done to try and set the record straight from what the Democrats tried to destroy, all that President Trump had done. And I enjoyed Nikki Haley and how she literally spoke out and saying that the Democrats were on the wrong road and on a road of socialism, and that we as a nation who has so many people who have gave their lives for this country to let it fall into socialist hands and socialist policies. And Tim Scott literally just set the record straight, and literally I hope maybe open the eyes of many of the Democrats who were all set in believing what was told to them by the Democratic committee. But I just enjoyed all that was done, and I think that this would really be an eye-opener if the news media was not so biased in making sure that each side is told.
You know what, though? The American people, they couldn't be biased during the middle of it. They got to hear the message. There were so many ways now to get the message to digitally, through different broadcasts, on your phone, on your computer, on your tablet. If they're going to vote and they care about, they're kind of figuring out who to vote for, this is kind of the first thing you watch, and then the next thing is the debates, really. So
this is over within 8 weeks,
9
weeks.
I want to play first Nikki Haley because she kind of did the contrast on the foreign policy side. Remember her service as ambassador to the United Nations. So this is Nikki Haley, who delivered the speech right before the keynote speech tonight delivered by Tim Scott. Bite 29.
Obama and Biden let North Korea threaten America. President Trump rejected that weakness, and we passed the toughest sanctions on North Korea in history. Obama and Biden let Iran get away with murder and literally sent them a plane full of cash. President Trump did the right thing and ripped up the Iran nuclear deal. Obama and Biden led the United Nations to denounce our friend and ally, Israel. President Trump moved our embassy to Jerusalem, and when the UN tried to condemn us, I was proud to cast the American veto. This president has a record of strength and success. The former vice president has a record of weakness and failure.
And I want to go to Sherry's call in California. So you had Nikki Haley doing that foreign policy back and forth. That's just night one, folks. Sharisi from California online too. Sharisi, welcome to Jay Sekulow Live.
Thank you for taking my call.
Thank you.
We appreciate all that you guys do. I wanted just to mention I watched last night as well, and I know after watching it, even during it, it was energetic, it was revitalizing, it was patriotic to hear so many real Americans, not celebrities or politicians, sharing testimonies and stories. It was extremely uplifting. And they recapped on so many of the wonderful things that the Trump administration has accomplished, which is a huge list that no one in the mainstream media ever shares anymore. It was just positive and energetic, and I cannot wait to vote in November.
Well, I'm encouraged by your comments, Sharisi. We appreciate that. And I think that's how the night ended. It was with Senator Tim Scott.
It's unreal.
Talking about the greatness of America, which Democrats don't like talking about anymore, that we're an exceptional country, that we are a land of opportunity. That was the theme of the night. He never even had to say that word, and yet you understood what Tim Scott was saying. Do we have the bite when he says, literally from the cotton fields to Congress?
I love that line.
Let's play that for everybody. That is powerful coming from Tim Scott, and a direct contrast to what you were told last week about the country.
My grandfather's 99th birthday would have been tomorrow. Growing up, he had to cross the street if a white person was coming. He suffered the indignity of being forced out of school as a third grader to pick cotton, and he never learned to read or write. Yet, he lived long enough to see his grandson become the first African American to be elected to both the United States House and the United States Senate in the history of this country. Our family went from cotton to Congress in one lifetime. And that's why I believe the next American century can be better than the last.
You know, so there again, I think that was the most powerful statement of the night.
Yep.
But there was a lot about school choice last night. And first, it really was brought up by a Democrat, House state rep
in Georgia,
currently elected from a county we used to live in, Vernon Jones, and he talked about school choice too, and what President Trump, when they say they're talking about President Trump did for HBCUs. And just so you know, those are historically black colleges and universities, and there's a lot of those in Georgia, especially in Atlanta, near where Vernon Jones represents. And so here's from Representative Jones, Bite 87.
He delivered historic funding to HBCUs, and he guaranteed it for 10 years, something that's never happened in the history of this country. That gave our HBCUs stability, the chance to grow, and produce the next generation of black leaders. That's right, Donald Trump did that. He's also supported school choice to ensure that no child, no matter their race or zip code, is left behind. Every child should have access to a quality education.
You know, I want to say something here because, you know, Jordan and Logan really wanted to launch this initiative on the schools. And when I see the results, and look, there's heartbreaking cases. Sometimes you can't get resolved. But when I see that computers have actually been given to parents that couldn't afford them, or access to broadband has been given, or special needs kids have been given special arrangement, food delivered, I'm telling you, it's worth all the work that we're doing at the ACLJ that you're supporting to help those parents.
Yeah, we didn't have time to get to it. Tim Scott, who's been a leader on school choice and trying to also make this part of the next COVID relief package as well, like a COVID voucher, talked about it last night too. So, and the president talked about it. So again, support the work of the ACLJ. All the issues that you're hearing about, we're working on at the American Center for Law and Justice. We're able to represent all these families, pastors imprisoned abroad, at no cost because of your donations, your support. Donate today at aclj.org. This is the final week of our matching challenge. aclj.org.
Yeah, folks, if you're able, again, only if you're able, make that gift today. aclj.org. You just saw a snippet of the work that we're doing because of you.